So Terraria has a lot of bosses, but there's one gray area where it's not covered a lot, and that's mini-bosses. Some would consider some of the event bosses as mini-bosses overall in the game, but again, there's nothing really too concrete on this. So today, we'll take a look at a Terraria top 5 mini-bosses list that's kind of a suggestion. Again, none of these really are official, but what makes them stand out are their hit points, their attack strength, and their overall toughness. So with that, this list is going to be highly opinionated, take it for what it's worth. Feel free to share your Terraria top 5 mini-bosses down below in the comments section. I would love to hear from you as always. So with that, let the speculation begin at number 5. Added in patch 1.3 is the Goblin Summoner. This is a hard mode enemy that was added to the Goblin Invasion event to spice things up once you get there. This little critter loves flying around and casting spells, but it has 2,000 hit points in normal mode and 3,400 hit points in expert mode. It doesn't particularly hit too hard, but it can make a dent in your health and shouldn't be overlooked. Before the patch, I used to find the Goblin Invasion very annoying if it happened in hard mode, but this was a nice little bit to add to it and make it a little bit more spicier. I think the Goblin Summoner is very neat. It drops about 3 items as well as a Goblin Summoner banner. Those 3 items are the Shadow Flame Hextile for mages, the Shadow Flame Knife, which auto-fires small flaming knife projectiles, which are actually melee, and these can actually ricochet off 2 enemies. It should also be said that they also inflict Shadow Flame debuff too, and that helps. And the Shadow Flame Bow, which turns regular wooden arrows to Shadow Flame arrows, which again cause the Shadow Flame debuff. These weapons do fill a niche that I didn't really know existed before, but they just seem to fit so well with where the event is, especially if you happen to get this during battles with the mechanical bosses. It's definitely a mini-boss worth farming. Number 4. This next one you're probably all familiar with, and that's Bone Lee. It only has 1,000 hit points in normal mode and 2,000 in expert mode, but again, this guy is very, very fast, and he does hit even harder than the Goblin Summoner. Bone Lee is basically a little Easter egg toward the actor and martial artist Bruce Lee. And while it's a really cool little Easter egg, Bone Lee is very annoying. He tends to pop out from any direction, charges extremely quick, and again, will stack up damage very fast. If you want to find a safe spot or just get away from Bone Lee, you're probably going to have to fly or grapple to a roof or ceiling just to stay away from him and just take him out from there. He can drop the Black Belt and Tabai, which are required for making the Master Ninja Gear, a very cool accessory that is really good for dodging, and it works well for expert mode boss fights. It is a bit of an uncommon enemy to see in the dungeon, but he does have great knockback resistance, so if he does surprise you, be prepared to move, cause knockback doesn't do too much. Have fun with this little guy. Number 3. Terraria's had mimics for quite a while now, but as of patch 1.3, we got to see some very special ones. The Corruption, Crimson, Hallowed were added, and there is a jungle, but it hasn't been implemented in-game yet. The Corruption, Crimson, and Hallowed mimics are quite strong. They actually have 3,500 hit points on normal mode and 7,000 hit points on expert mode. They differ from normal mimics not only because of size, but of speed and attack as well. They too tend to leap around sometimes, but they also have the ability to fly up and slam down on top of you, causing decent damage. And there are periods where they will pause and freeze themselves to look like a chest and actually repel any kind of ranged attack back at the player, something to be very mindful of. Each mimic has a very cool little design that represent their specific region they're from, but I really do hope we get to see that jungle mimic one day with some really awesome loot. Speaking of which, each mimic has its own really cool loot. For instance, the Hallowed mimic drops the Daedalus Stormbow, Flying Knife, Crystal Vial Shard, and the Illuminate Hook, while the Crimson mimic has Life Drain, Dart Pistol, Fetid Bagnax, a really cool melee weapon, Flesh Knuckles, Tendon Hook, you get the idea. So these guys can put up a pretty decent challenge, and they also drop some really good loot. To get them, you're gonna have to spawn them by taking an empty chest and placing either a Key of Light or Key of Night inside and closing it. Of course, those keys can be crafted with either 15 Souls of Light or 15 Souls of Night. Overall, I really love the addition of these guys in the game. They add so much, especially with the loot. They make progressing in hard mode a lot easier, while giving us more weapons and variants to use. Overall, I feel like everyone should at least fight these things at least one time. Even if you really can't stand them, they're still good. Number 2. Now we have the Paladin, another one of those uncommon mobs in the dungeon, but actually has a lot of power to him. The Paladin has 5,000 hit points on normal mode and 10,000 on expert mode. One of the biggest things, while it is slow moving, he can hit you like a truck. His projectiles do move pretty quick, but the best way to avoid them is to keep attacking so he cannot throw back. So basically, yeah, if you attack him, he won't retaliate, at least until you stop, so don't. The Paladin does drop the Paladin's Hammer and the Paladin's Shield, which are two really good items. The Paladin's Hammer, though, is a bit of a hard-to-get drop. It's a melee weapon that throws ranged weapons in the form of a boomerang. This compares very nicely to the Possessed Hatchet that drops from the Golem, and this actually works really good for crowd control as well. Overall, he's not a very difficult mob as long as you're careful and you just keep attacking and don't let up. He has a lot of hit points, he has some decent defense, so just keep chipping at him and you'll get him. And finally, number 1. Multan was another one of these that were added in patch 1.3 and is very cool to see. It comes out during the solar eclipse event and actually has 6,000 hit points on normal mode and 12,000 on expert mode. Its defense is much lower than the Paladin. At the same time, flying around can be a bit annoying and hard to catch up with some characters, but it does drop some pretty interesting loot. First, there's the Broken Hero Sword, which again you can use to craft the Terra Blade, the Eye of Cthulhu, which is the second most powerful yo-yo in the game, and of course there's Multan wings, which look really cool, and well, they're wings. Most players would probably farm Multan for the Eye of Cthulhu, seeing how powerful it is. Multan is an Easter egg to Mothra from the namesake 1961 movie, which is really cool to see. It also has the ability to spawn eggs which will catch baby Multan that can be very annoying. They only have 700 hit points on normal mode and 1400 on expert mode, but still, it's best just to break the eggs before you get a whole bunch of babies flying around because they become one big nuisance. Again, it's not really considered any kind of boss, but I feel like the mini-boss designation will be perfect for a mob like this. It just fits in so well. Anyway, that's going to do it for our top 5 list. Thank you so much for watching. Again, feel free to share yours down below in the comments section, as mine is all opinion-based. I really hope you enjoyed the video. Please be sure to rate it accordingly if you enjoyed it. Have yourselves a wonderful day. I'll see you again next time. The video's over, but there's more where that came from. Be sure to subscribe for more Terraria Let's Plays, Top 5s, and other videos as well as we cover different titles. You can click on one of the videos here for more. Be sure to rate this video accordingly as it helps the channel out greatly. Have yourself a wonderful day, and I will see you again next time.